Happy Monday, everyone.
Happy Monday.
Happy Monday, everyone.
Monday.
Happy Monday.
There you go. Our guest says happy Monday.
So let's think of life as a series of decisions. But sometimes we need structure to make decisions that'll give you the best possible outcome in our personal lives and our professional lives. So today we are privileged to have from beautiful San Diego, life coach Haleh Gianni. Thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate you taking out the time and
Welcome,
being with us.
Haleh.
Hi, Haleh.
Hi to you guys, and thank you for having me. It's my pleasure to be with you today.
So Haleh, let's start us off on a great note. What did you have us make this week?
Oh yeah,
Our Noosh of the week.
Noosh of the week.
It's very colorful this week.
Yes. So first, let's just say besalamati.
Besalamati.
Cheers,
Happy
yes.
Monday. Cheers.
Health and
Cheers.
happiness and
Thank you. You too.
strength
Noosh, everyone.
to get through the
Yes.
year. So this is
Refreshing.
lemon,
Really good. That's really good.
cucumber, mint water. It'll keep you hydrated. It's detoxifying. It's good for your immune system, digestive system, and it's also good for the mood.
And it
I
just
think
looks
this is
pretty.
what they call mojitos in Iran.
The benefit is for us Iranians, extra cucumbers left over.
Oh my
Put some
gosh.
salt on.
Cucumber, mint
Yeah.
from your sabzi arrangement, and it doesn't have lemon. So everything that's in the fridge.
Exactly.
Healthy for you. That's all that matters.
All right. So I guess we'll start with Haleh. Tell us who you are and what you do. Obviously, you're a life coach, but we want to hear from your
Yes, Haleh, in one
perspective.
sentence or less, tell us who you are.
Yes, one sentence. That's it.
No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Who I am or what I do.
Both. Just
Both?
go into it. Deep dive.
First of all, some people, Haleh is my name. That's how it's pronounced in Farsi. But my non-Persian friends know me as Haleh. And there's a little funny backstory behind that real quick. One of my friends in college could not pronounce my name. She was from Mobile, Alabama. And
Yes.
looked at my name and she said, I went to college in Georgia. And she said, can I just call you Haleh? And I said, okay. And and then that's how I just introduced myself to my non-Persian friends. It kind of has a different ring. It also has a little swag with it. So Haleh, like A, but
Trust me, you had it easy in the Persian name
Yeah, I was gonna say.
roulette table.
It
Yeah.
could have got worse.
But yes, Haleh is my name. I live in San Diego. I have been a professional life coach doing this full time for over a decade now. I launched in 2009 and transitioned over into owning my practice and offering my services to individuals as well as companies. In one sentence, what I do is that I help people focus on what is good for them, what is right for them, rather than beating the drum of what is wrong with them. As a result, the quality of life enhances significantly.
Okay, I'm going to deep dive into that right now because a big question that I had myself and actually some of my friends that I was talking to when I told them we're having a life coach on the podcast, they were like, what is the difference between a life coach and just going to see a therapist? Like how can I distinguish between the two? How do I know if I need to go see a life coach for something or if I need to go see a therapist for something? So maybe you could expand on that and kind of help clear the air on that confusion.
It's such a great question. It comes up a lot, okay? Because the term itself, life coach, is very broad. Honestly, it is a very unregulated profession in a way, and it's an unregulated term. Literally tomorrow, somebody could have an experience that they learned something from, and they can decide to call themselves a life coach.
Yeah.
Based on a past experience. So I see this across the board, so many people giving themselves that term, and I can value that and understand that. Typically we get inspired through our stories. So that has its own place. But a professional life coach with the right curriculum background, with the right trainings and certification and the practical experience is someone who helps individuals really apply and integrate what they're learning and what they're picking up. Because it's one thing to have motivational quotes around or attend motivational seminars and know your past and know your, weaknesses and strength. And it's another thing really integrating all of those things into your life and seeing the results, right? It's the application of it. So The difference between a clinical therapist and how you would know when it's appropriate to see a clinical therapist versus a life coach is really if you are having anything that is coming from your past that is trauma, it involved some kind of trauma, some kind of, I always recommend people to get a diagnosis anyway if they are having some very significant mental health issues that they're dealing with. A lot of times clinical therapists will actually refer their clients to me as a life coach to help them. And there are some cases where I needed to refer my clients to work with a therapist and approach this on a clinical standpoint. And you could think of what I do is the bridge between the clinical world and the motivational arena. People that are very much about, the sort of the drill sergeants when it comes to bettering yourself and bettering your life. I do have a background in behavioral sciences, and I do have, various backgrounds in the business arena as well. But in personal development, people that want to make a difference in their own world, they're tired of talking about their past. They're tired of being, victimizing themselves and feeling like there's no hope because they had a certain type of childhood, or they grew up in a certain environment, or they're limited by their financial, marital, socioeconomic, or all kinds of limitations. So someone like me would come in and help them reassess their life and change their perspective so they can actually live a better life.
Okay. So I have another question, because you're saying you have a background in behavioral sciences. I also read that you actually worked as an engineer and your degree is actually in biochem, which is totally different than what you're doing right now.
Can I interject here? Army is a complete groupie of you. She's a big fan of yours. So
she loves women engineering.
Yes, I'm an engineer also, so I'm all for like women empowerment in STEM. But also I love the motivational aspect and all that stuff. So I'm kind of also, I relate to your story. Like I see you as a role model. So my question here is, how did you figure out that you wanted to be a life coach? Did you yourself go through an experience that you were like, wow, I want to motivate other people and I want to do this as a career and be that bridge for people and have people go through the breakthrough I did? Or what was that process like for you?
Sure. So I was a biochemistry major because I was a pre-med major. I wanted to go into medicine, and my grandfather was was a doctor, and my uncle was a cardiologist. So it ran in the family, obviously being Persian. Also
you have three options.
You're limited.
Three.
So limited, right? But I truly, genuinely thought that was the right path. I didn't feel, the pressure from the family. I just thought, okay, this is great. This is what I need to be doing. And then when I got into the last year, when I was doing my, hospital rotations and accumulating volunteer hours, I realized I didn't want to be around sick people all the time. I know it sounds really bad. I
Same
just
way.
like, I gotta help. I gotta find out where I could add value before they end up at the hospital.
Yeah,
right? But I had no idea what that would look like and what that meant. So I took it a year off, and then somehow ended up in engineering and getting my master's in systems communication management, and just fell into the software world. And it was a big challenge for me. It was a world I was so unfamiliar with, but it felt good. It was very intriguing. It was the right kind of challenge. So I grew into that. 7-8 years later, I went through a major personal transformation where everything was just placed under, a magnifying glass, where you're like, do I want this? Is this the right path? Is this the right marriage? Is this the right city? Is this everything was just questionable at the time. And I took made some really significant changes or decisions in my life, and went into reinventing myself. While still being in engineering, I was trying to figure out how to keep my own head above the water. It was sink or swim for me, okay? And I chose to swim. So I started learning about different personal development techniques. At that point, I had no idea life coaching was in the horizons for me. I think that term was just too big. It's too big of a responsibility to be someone's life coach.
You hear it, but you never meet someone that's actually a life coach.
Right. But I mean, can you imagine the responsibility that for those of us that take this profession seriously and pour their heart and soul into it. It's a huge responsibility. You're giving people advice, you're supporting them, you're being their soundboard. It's a lot, and it takes someone who's super grounded, but someone who also knows how to dust themselves off. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like keep their own clarity and integrity. So I was researching a lot of coaches that were out there, a lot of mentors. I was getting a lot of help myself. And I was slowly starting to share what I was learning with everybody else, still not knowing that that would be my profession. And coming from the tech world, one of the biggest challenges that I was seeing for people, for engineers especially, was communication. Okay.
Yep.
This like different type of personality, different type of wiring. And it was really fascinating to me because I served as a director of quality assurance engineer. And I was the bridge between systems engineers, developers, designers, marketing, sales, the executives and all that. And so anyway, long story short.
So essentially you were the straw that stirred the drink.
I was, yes, I still am. It's really funny because I had this role. I stepped into software quality assurance engineering. And some of my old colleagues now tell me that your past job was about, adding quality to software. Now you're adding
doing
quality
people's lives. Yeah.
But you came back to reality.
Totally. It's just like, you are what you are. But really it started when it was so funny because I went back to school. I went back to the Y.O.U Institute, got my certification in life coaching and the scientific human behavior assessment instrument that ended up being sort of the catalyst behind me going into life coaching, because I felt that the value behind this knowledge was so powerful, so significant, that it felt like it was my duty to share it with the world. I could no longer sit behind the computer and code away and just go to meetings and go home and look forward to a Friday or whatever, right? So it became such a big thing. It was like I would implode if I didn't launch into helping others and sharing it with the world. So along the way, I've had some amazing mentors, amazing role models, amazing people that I've learned from and that have supported me. So I didn't care about the title itself. It was more about how can I add value, because I became the person I was looking for at the time, but I couldn't find it. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
then
you became that person. Your initial point, you wanted to be in medicine to help people, but you didn't want to be in that environment. So you had to, through engineering and going.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah.
Found a way to help people without being in a hospital, essentially.
Yes.
But sometimes it does feel, I don't know how to pinpoint the word for it. Like, cause I was the same way. I can't stand the sight of like blood or guts or anything, but I wanted to help people. So I got my degree in my master's in medical devices engineering, because I wanted to work on medical devices that help people in the medical field. But I mean, you're also helping people as an engineer, but it's different because sometimes you feel like you're just sitting behind a computer and going through meetings, and it's like you want to actually be out there seeing your actions actually influence people and make a change, which is what you're doing now as a life coach, because you can actually sit one-on-one with people and see that what you're saying and what you're doing with them is actually impacting them personally one-on-one.
Absolutely. I always tell people, like, just because it's the nature of being human. We all want to help, feel like we are being purposeful, and that's how the human mind is satisfied and fulfilled. But you don't have to be a life coach or be a mentor of some sort to serve that purpose. You can do that by coding. You could do that through music. You can do that through exercise, through, any profession ultimately comes down to that very nucleus of this whole purpose of being human, which is
you just gotta find the niche that you're passionate about, and you have that affinity to help others, and you do it indirectly or directly with that instant gratification.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. So I think, Arta, you want to go into the assessment you mentioned.
Yes. So Haleh, I seen that in your practice, you have a very specific tool that you guys use. And I just wanted to see, for you to go deeper into what the ULT assessment is and how you apply it to your practice to help people in their self-growth.
The ULT stands for the Ultimate Life Tool. It's a technology. It's an advanced, comprehensive human assessment technology. In the assessment world, there are over thousands of psychometric tools out there that you can take online. Some of your viewers are going to be very familiar with them, such as DISC, Myers-Briggs, Strength Finder. There's so many of them out there. They're pretty useful in figuring out a little bit about our own little modes of operation. However, the ULT serves as more of like a foundation, the base of everything. And it is based in nature and in science and helps us understand some of our natural dispositions, the things we do that are innate within us and are not learned skills. Because when we do things that are innately available to us, we actually get more recharged and refueled and re-energized versus the things that we have learned. And so it's expected of us to apply those things in different areas.
Yeah.
So the way I use the ULT is that I'll have anybody that wants to work with me take this survey. It's about 10 minutes. It's super short and super sweet. You take it and the results are always fascinating and jaw-dropping to people because of the level of depth and comprehensiveness that this Ultimate Life tool reveals to people about themselves. And they always say, were you in my room the other day listening to my conversation? Do you know my family? Did you interview so-and-so? And I didn't have to do any of it. And it doesn't make me a psychic or anything. And I don't even need to know your horoscope. It's a very powerful tool.
Let me tell you something about these horoscopes.
I was gonna say that's really similar to telling your sign.
I'm not a believer in astrology, like by any means, but Amralan sends me like some horoscope things and
their birth charts. So I found a link for their birth charts, and we started going through and analyzing the three of our birth charts and Chiron and Lilith and moon sign and rising sign and all of these things. And I wasn't that crazy into astrology. I mean, I believe some of the traits that go with my sign. I'm a Gemini, so some of the stuff I believe in. But really going detailed into the birth charts, that stuff, I was like, no, that's for crazy obsessed people. And then I did it, and I did theirs, and we were all shocked.
And then she became crazy obsessed.
And then I became crazy obsessed.
Just kept sending them afterwards.
Now imagine if you add the ULT results to
my God.
I'd probably lose my mind.
I would lose my mind too. I would think somebody is in my head spying on me, because that's what it felt like with the birth chart alone.
How many questions is it?
It's 82 questions, but it goes by really fast.
That's a very specific number.
Right. It's a very, it's super quick. And the questions are very confusing to people sometimes, because you're like, how do you know anything about me by just this question? And that's what's
so is the format set up like where it's just questions on one list, or is it you answer it then you get another question?
No, it's just like you go through, there's like 3 or 4 questions on each page, and you go proceed, and then you go to the next page.
No, I guess my question was geared towards my next question isn't going to be affected by the answer I gave previously.
Right. They're already preset
questions. Gotcha.
They're just they're all preset, and you answer the questions, and then it generates what's called a grid. And the grid is what the trained practitioner will interpret and break down for the client. And then they also get a 7 to 9 page report, which is super to the point, direct. They can take a look at it and share it with their, I have people share it with their business partners, with their romantic partners, their colleagues, children, friends, or whatever. And just to be able to really bring the attention on what it is what kind of circumstances, opportunities you need to create in order to thrive in this life.
Okay, that makes sense. Work everybody's strengths.
It also shows what's powerful about the ULT. I have to mention this, is that it shows if there are any areas where there's inauthenticity taking place, meaning that you're trying to plug yourself into a task or into a role, into a situation that's actually draining you. It's like having a leak on your tire, and every single day you're just depleting yourself of energy, and specifically on how you get to regain yourself and create that alignment that you need in order to show up fully and at your 100%.
Okay, now that got me. How do you even figure that out?
Yeah, it's really powerful. It was created by a woman called Dr. Zana Hackett, and a scientist at UCSD. And was developed over 20 plus years of research, and finally turned into an algorithm, into a software program where people can actually go on and take it. In the early days, it was all manual, so people had to like sit there and do number crunching, all kind
incredible.
of spreadsheets and whatnot. But we have 124 certified practitioners worldwide, which is not a big number when you compare to all the life coaches that are out there that are certified to use this technology in helping people.
Okay.
That's amazing. So let's say you're a parent inquiring this, for their child to, better help develop their structure and their growth. How early can someone take this assessment, in age?
Right, as early as 9, as young as
9.
9. Yes. I'm 9 years old, so they can take that. They might need a parent just for certain words, or or they can look up the meaning of something on their phone. But I've had 9-year-olds take the assessment. I also have worked with 80-some-year-olds. It's such a big range, but regardless of your age. And it's funny because with the cycle of life, we go back to our childhood.
Always.
That's why you see, your grandparents or great grandparents mimicking certain behavior that they had in their early years in grade school, and they'll remember certain things. So yeah, it's a big, its application is actually pretty broad.
So going off that really quick, have you had clients where they would have their kids take the assessment so they could learn more about their kids and how to parent better, geared towards their kids' personalities? Has that ever happened?
Sure, absolutely. I've had parents, get their kids to take the assessment. I've had partners welcome encourage their spouse or their significant other to take the test, because it adds clarity. It's kind of like an operating manual that your parents didn't get when you were born.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A parenting manual. That would have been great.
Right?
Yeah, right. Especially for our Persian parents here.
Oh, absolutely.
I was going to say, with anybody who had childhood drama, ask any Persian American that grew up in the U.S. with Persian parents who grew up in Iran, and they'll tell you that the childhood was interesting, to say the least.
A wild ride.
But you know what it is? It's not just limited to Persians, any kind of immigrant family.
Right.
Right, yeah.
When you have that, like, you have to leave your tradition behind and now integrate into this, like, a different model, a different system. We see this across the board. So many people having to adjust, and then the generation growing up here having their own challenges and their own obstacles. It's
a roller coaster for everyone.
Right. Exactly.
For sure.
So Haleh, going back to how you started getting to life coaching,
Yes.
how did you, that was a 2-part question. First of all, when you told your family, I'm going to be a life coach, or however you presented to them, what was their reaction? Because they had our Khanum Mohandis, very proud, very all good. You were in the 3 approved career choices.
Yeah.
So how did that conversation go, or conversations go?
I love that you even thought of this question because it's so valid and it's so real. My family knew that. I feel like ever since I was 5 years old, I was helping everybody kind of have some peace and have some, understanding and help people improve their communications and create lists and all of that. So it was always ingrained in me. But it was a challenge, right? Because it was so unfamiliar to them, right? They had no idea what would that look like. You look at like job stability, development, credibility, and all of those things. You kind of start, anytime you step into a new profession, you're starting from ground zero.
Gotcha.
You have to build yourself up. So naturally, for people around you that are comfortable knowing that you are pretty secure, you have a stable job, you have your income and all of that, it's a big change it's a big one to swallow, right?
Yeah.
So because of that, that was a pretty shocking news for them. But I have put them through several shocks in my life. So this was like, all right, well, go on. And
the last straw.
Like, here we go again.
Exactly. But, they wish me well. But it's so interesting how throughout the years I was questioned several times, like, are you sure? Is this the right thing? How's it going for you? Are you,
Yeah, it's never a lack of support. It's more of a lack of understanding and the questioning that you get from it. It's the
Because the
support's
thing
always
is,
going to be there, but it's just
yeah.
sometimes parents ask it in a negative
Yes.
way, right? Like, I support you, but this isn't going to work out.
Mhm.
Right.
Or support you, but I think
Are
it's
you
a bad
sure you want to do it?
Are you
Like,
sure you want to do
we'll
it?
be behind you no matter what you do, but are you sure you want to do it? Are you sure you're not good where
Do it
you
on the
are?
side.
Do it on the side. That's
Right,
all.
do
That
it
was,
on
yep.
the side. Exactly. But you know what though? It comes down to you. It comes down to, it was all about me at the time. It wasn't about what everybody else was asking and their energy and whatnot. Anytime you decide to take a leap towards something unknown, something unfamiliar, that you have to be so 100% in, focused and ready to, do the fight, that's part of the learning. That's part of your growth, to be able to handle the negative, the doubt, the negativity, the doubts, the jabs here and there. Otherwise, it wouldn't be as gratifying. So the journey is part of the whole process, and of course, from our Persian families and parents, it's undeniable that comes with it. It's just the price you pay.
So transitioning from that, now you decided that I will be a life coach. This is what I'm going to do. I have the support of my family. I'm good with this. How did you initially go about selling your services, so to speak, on being a life coach?
Right. So, there's so many different ways that I went about it. But what ended up happening is that while I had my engineering corporate job, I started putting the word out there. I started all like the business needs of it were already taken place and being structured before I went full-time into engineering. So developing the business, the website, the marketing strategies, all of those things were happening. So I wasn't kind of just sitting there going, oh my God, what am I going to do? How am I going to sell my services or let the world know who I am? So all of that was, they say like, okay, from 9 to 5 is what you do for your corporation. From 5 to 9 is what you got to do for yourself.
Mhm.
I literally put in the time, from 5 p.m., 6 p.m. until 2, 3 in the morning sometimes. So it didn't come easy, but it came with a ton of dedication, commitment, faith, knowing that this was the right path for me. Now, putting myself out there was one thing, and having the courage to step into that role. And now, you have to value yourself. You're getting paid for the value that you bring to the table. So naturally, I think instead of putting a lot of money into marketing, I started sharing. I started doing a lot of pro bono work, a lot of volunteer work, a lot of just word of mouth, doing a lot of open houses throughout San Diego. And it wasn't like so much online. I was doing a lot of offline stuff, actually like meeting with people, introducing this to them. And then it spread really fast.
Wow.
Okay, because it's just like word of mouth. Somebody telling somebody else, you need to talk to her, you need to, and then it just grew from there. So it was a very organic growth, but came with a lot of commitment.
Did
You struck gold.
Yeah. Did you find yourself more giving these services to the Persian community, or it was just very random on who was calling you for appointments and whatnot?
It was random, living in San Diego. I actually don't really know a lot of Persians out here, but it was random. It was, I would host an event and whoever came was welcome,
Right.
And if they happened to know someone who was also, Middle Eastern, Persian, or any kind, they felt that I could relate to them. I am listed on Psychology Today, and Persian is an option that I could choose as a language that I fluently speak. So I have a lot of people in the last 5 years or so reach out to me because they want to talk to somebody who understands their culture, their background, that could relate to some of their struggles and challenges that they face. So I'm pretty international.
I'm not saying you're not. I'm just saying the people that were kind of reaching out.
No, at first it was literally like just whoever was. There's a level of intrigue that leads people to take action and to go after this, right? And then curiosity, and then also the need. They have a need and they're saying, oh, okay, I believe that this person can help me. So that's how it was developed.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
It all makes sense.
So, Haleh, with how you approach your business, I know you work with personal self-growth, you work with relationships and businesses. What are the different ways, or how do you approach each one, differently? With a business that might need certain different requirements for the growth and versus personal, how do you approach it differently?
Okay, so businesses are run and operated by humans, okay? So it's always the human that is involved. That's a common denominator. And I always tell companies, people that work for you, that are part of your entity, when they are taken care of, when they are authentic, when they are engaged in the right tasks and activities, then they do better. They perform better. Their performance and motivation is sustainable. So that's one thing. They're individual, on the individual side, on the personal development side, when people take care of their private life, their personal well-being, they see that their growth in the professional space starts to enhance and go up. So a lot of times people, depending on what avenues they reach me and they come to me, it could be a business that says, hey, can you come in and talk to our executives, and can you take a look at some of these functional teams and see if we have put the right people together to work together. Those individuals end up hiring me and wanting me to talk to their partners and their kids and their cousins and then their aunts and whoever. So it's an ecosystem that ultimately is just one. It's just a different playground, but it's the people that show up.
They all have to go hand in hand.
They do. And when you feel better, you do better. And when you do better, you want to do better. And the whole cycle continues. But when someone is in the state of misery and in their, darkness, and they're feeling extremely challenged, every aspect of their life is affected.
Gets affected, yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Well, I guess want to go into that when you're saying someone's in a dark place and if it affects everything in their life. So what if when someone gets to that point where they want to choose, like, okay, I want to get myself out of this dark place. I'm tired of being sad and upset all the time. I'm not reaching any of my goals. I'm not making the steps to reach any of my goals. I don't know what I want, just confused and in that fuzzy, sad place. Obviously, they can't wake up the next morning and just go 0 to 100 and everything's fine again. So what are the kind of some of the first key steps a person should be taking, or how do you approach that situation when somebody comes to you for help on that?
So being in a dark place, so to speak, is not a switch that goes on and off. It is a gradual becoming, right? It is just a path that a person has been on. And they've picked up different circumstances along the way that ends up making them feel really overwhelmed, really heavy-hearted, and feel like they're super stuck and they can't get out. So you're right. We can't just, switch it back on and say, oh, life is great. It's wonderful. Here you go. Here are all the tools and have a beautiful life. I wish it was like that. And I always tell people, I'm like, I wish I had a magic wand and I could just wave it around and then everything would be great. So you start to kind of, instead of looking back, looking in the rear view mirror, and start dissecting every single thing that caused them to become the way that they've become, you start to change a person's perspective on the way they associate with their story. Okay, so it's called cognitive reframing. You begin to reframe your story. You begin to tell your story a little differently and start to find ways or extract little parts, snippets of it that will help you feel a little more empowered in the midst of the chaos, right? Like you matter, like your decisions can change the trajectory of your life, that you're not just the product of what has happened. So changing the perspective, cognitive reframing, changing the way you associate with your past and the people that were in it or are in it, is the first step to helping people see what stands before them when they look in the mirror, right? That there's this person, that there's this entity that has its gifts, its talents, its drivers and motivators, and those are the things we want to feed for them to start to get on a different path.
And Going into, I guess, manifestation, and because that's such a big thing, you hear it everywhere now on social media. Everyone's like, manifest the life you want. If you just keep saying the things you want and manifest it, then the universe will give it to you. Like, no, you gotta work on yourself, and you gotta
You can't
work.
sit on the couch and say, I want $1 million and think
Exactly. You can't sit on your bed watching TV and just say out loud, oh my gosh, I want to have my own business. Like, you got to get up, you got to work on yourself, you got to work on your craft, and then build that business. But obviously, with manifestation and positive thoughts, right? Right now, everyone's about positivity and looking at the bright side of things. But what is your take on when you're going through a negative situation? Because obviously, when you're going through a negative situation, I always say, let me think of the positives of this. How can I learn from this? How can I benefit from it? But also, I feel like we kind of do need to go through the negative thoughts a little bit, like go through the motions of it. So what are your thoughts on that? Like always staying positive all the time, or kind of letting the negative thoughts wallow a little bit so you can process them?
Never cry, Armand. Never
Yeah.
cry.
No, I don't cry. No, I'm kidding.
I love how you framed this question. It's very smart. It's very thought of, so well thought of. So
very engineerish.
Very engineering. We get it, right, girl?
There you go.
No, the thing is, my mentor used to say that when primitive man started to think with words, when words became part of the scene, right, that's when trouble began, because we started to shortcut having our needs met based on our interpretation of certain words. The word negative, okay, is something that is like, oh my God, this person is so negative, I can't be around them. Or you start to think, why am I being so negative? Now I'm going to attract all these negative things to myself. And it's just like then doom and gloom. So we create a reality out of our emotional association with that word. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Versus positive, if enough people glorify it and glamorize a certain term, then all of a sudden it becomes the right thing to do, and that everything is celebrated and everyone's like, oh, this person is so positive. But really, if you take the word out, it's the feelings, it's the emotions, it's how the person shows up. Okay. Now there is a gift in those polarized emotions, because when you're in state of, let's say, negativity, it depends what the person is doing with that state. Because when you start to think negative, it's in fact the purpose of it is that so you go into problem solving, problem identifying, defect management, figuring out where some areas are where you have to make some corrections. Right? So if you look at it that way, then being positive and just saying, I'm only going to focus on the great things that are working out for me, you're going to miss improving, evolving, solving problems. Right? So it's all about the actual feelings that come with it. And we have to not get so trendy with the way we manage our thoughts and our energy and how we approach life, and not get caught up in that space because enough people glorify and glamorize, and then we should do it. Instead, take a look at what is the purpose of you feeling like, okay, I'm in this state of only focusing on what's broken in my life. Well, good, do something about it. Maybe pick one of those things that you don't feel good about, that you feel like is not working out for you, and start dissecting it and open it up, peel it off layer by layer, and see what you can get out of it. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, that makes total sense, because I used to be, no, I know you're saying not to say it this way, but I used to be such a negative person because I was very, very depressed, and any small thing that would happen, I was like, oh my gosh, my life is terrible. Everything that happens to me is negative. But now I'm kind of going through that transition where I'm like, okay, what can I learn from all that negativity that was happening? Even now, if something goes wrong throughout my day or something, yeah, I get upset, I complain about it, but then I'm like, okay, so how do I turn this into a positive by also processing my feelings of what happened and why it was a negative, and then learn from it and move forward towards a more positive track instead of following in it.
It is. It's what we do with it, because different emotions, even sadness, even loneliness, even feeling of unworthiness, or all of those things are meant for something. They're not just there to make humanity suffer. It is
Yeah.
about the ultimate goal of evolution, right? But if you got to know what to do with those emotions so you can create a better circumstance for yourself. Right?
And I think that kind of goes into, I think Arta had a question on the mind, body, spirit, and all of that connection.
Yeah, you speak on things being broken down to threes. We have morning, afternoon, night, and then, everything being connected. You talk about the mind, body, and spirit being connected. So how can we try to balance those three in our daily lives, to live a more substantial life?
Well, when you step into personal development, when you realize that your goal is to continue to evolve, to tap into your potential, naturally, those three different aspects of your existence, which is, there's actually more to it, but for the sake of, for simplicity purposes, we will keep it to mind, body, and spirit. Those things will naturally evolve with you, okay? Because let's say that I decide to do some daily affirmations, okay? And do some affirmations to help reset my mind, reset my intentions, really pay attention to like what I want to focus on. Okay. Mm-hmm. That naturally make me feel better, to make me show up more whole. I'm not as triggered. I'm not as agitated. I'm not as easily thrown off. Right. And then you start to make more appropriate choices when it comes to what to drink and how to fuel your body. You become the main source of respect and honor for yourself. Okay, so ultimately the goal is to get you to a point where it doesn't feel like hard work. It doesn't feel like, oh great, I got to go to the gym, I got to eat.
It's a chore or errand, yeah.
Right, it's a burden on you. And there's so many cliches and wrong sayings out there that I wish we could just start undoing and unsaying because they're harming us. For example, when we say, oh, I've been so good, I'm going to reward myself with some junk food. Okay, right. That needs to be reversed.
Guilty.
Right?
Guilty too.
Because that affects our decisions subconsciously. We think that eating well is torture and eating bad is rewarding. When we talk about there are a lot of things out there from even a subliminal type of slogans and cliche terms and things that we throw around that are actually hurting us, not helping us. So yes, we live in the third dimension. This third dimension is governed by certain laws that everyone universally adheres to. You mentioned a few of them. There's morning, noon, and night. There's breakfast, lunch, and dinner. There's 3 trimesters of pregnancy. 3 strikes, you're out. 3 warnings, you're fired. There's so many examples of it. And we do have to, if we want to live a well life, it is our responsibility to honor ourselves when it comes to mental health, physical health, and spiritual health.
And that's an interesting way to look at it.
A lot to take in.
Yeah, I know. I'm like thinking about the junk food part.
And it doesn't mean like you have to be at like your pristine way, but it's just look at it as, I'm going to slip up a little bit and eat something that I know is not good for me, but I know how to recover and how to cleanse myself afterwards, instead of, that's what I was talking about, cognitive reframing. Instead of saying, I'm going to reward myself with something bad and punish myself with something good.
Mm-hmm.
So Haleh, in one of your videos, you mentioned that, it's good to be aware of certain situations around us and current events and what's happening in the world, but having too much information or news, being consumed is actually damaging. And you had said that it's almost paralyzing towards your mind and body. And today we have a smartphone at our disposal 24/7 that has constantly news, negative news that we see currently and disasters and tragic events happening around the world. How do we kind of balance all the information that's out there with our own, self-conscious, and how to protect ourselves, with that blanket of positivity almost?
Yes. So it is very true that today we live in this time that it's nothing new about it, but we do have access to information. Whatever information you need is at your fingertips. Okay. And sometimes you could be even intending to look for something positive and then get thrown all kinds of, doom and gloom and horrific news that.
Yeah. Just looking in the comments section of anything posted online.
Exactly. Exactly. Or even certain ads that pop up and certain things, it's that internet cloud that, you start looking for something and then it takes you down this rabbit hole.
Pops up, yeah.
Right? Yeah, it pops up everywhere. I mean, you guys have seen Social Dilemma, I'm sure, on Netflix.
I'm halfway done with it.
I haven't yet. I'm
Halfway
too
done?
I
scared
need
to.
to, yeah.
Yeah, there was
Everyone
one
keeps
line in there
mentioning it.
that there was one line in there that did it for me, and yeah, that it was. What did they say? That if something is free, then you're the product.
Yeah.
So
I'm too terrified to watch that yet.
Don't worry, this is getting posted on all the social media.
yeah. By the way,
But you know what it is, though? It's about this part of us, that part of our brain, part of our mind, the way that we approach things. When you approach anything with this compulsive type of behavior and reaction, anything could be bad for you.
right?
Okay, not just the news. Anything you drink too much water, it could be bad for you. Right?
Right.
It's the compulsivity that comes with it that makes it really bad. Now, certainly, there are aspects of news that could be helpful to us. If there's a fire and you need to look up, how far the fire is and whether you need to evacuate or not. It's when that's what makes it important. But when we become compulsive and when we let it go and we become complacent and let the digital news or the whatever, the TV or whatever, consume us, that's when it becomes detrimental and starts to take away the clarity, mental clarity you need to put towards things that affect you personally. Okay, that's number one. The other thing is we have to be extremely discerning when it comes to the source of information that we are getting, whatever it is that we're getting from. Right? Can you validate that this source is integrity based? Mm-hmm. Can you verify that whatever you're hearing is not has no agenda behind it, and it's not manipulating you for their own gain and all of those things? And that's why breaking it into smaller chunks, digestible chunks, is going to be super important. Okay. Otherwise, I've seen people, especially this year, there's been enough news, recurring stuff coming up that
recycled.
You could be glued to any kind of source of news or media just to get information. But that is certainly taking away from so much more good we can do for ourselves.
The credibility part, it is so hard, especially when COVID first became about here. Oh my gosh, you were seeing headlines everywhere. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, the news. I mean, it was so hard to know what was real.
Everybody wanted to click.
Everybody.
And then you know what it is also is that when you look around and your family and your neighbor and your friend and everyone's talking about a limitation of some sort, a traumatic experience of some sort, it is naturally consuming. And the phrase I use, paralyzing, is that it shuts you down, it contracts you, and it puts you into this there's nothing I can do. And that state of hopelessness is what zaps all of our creativities and our energy level, which then reminds me of, I read an article on Business Insider the other day that said in the last Great Recession that started in 2008, some of the companies that are the most widely used companies today actually started during that Great Recession. For example, Instagram, WhatsApp, Uber, Airbnb, Pinterest, Square, Slack, all of these guys started during the Great Recession. And
all without a tangible product.
What's that?
All without an actual touch and feel product. It was just
digital.
An idea, yeah.
Right? Digital. There was an idea, there was a concept that ended up helping people, right? And these are the companies that stuck around and made life in a way easier for us. So too much.
Seems like you're saying no excuse then. No excuses.
No excuses. Right? It shuts off your creativity, your energy level, and numbs you. And what a shame that is to let that consume you.
Come with solutions rather than state the problem over and over.
Right. Once you know the problem, great. It's a problem. Can I do something about it? Can I overcome it? Can I survive it? That's why I was saying that sink or swim. But reiterating the same thing over and over and over again takes up time in your mind, takes up space, and you can't do
it. And energy, honestly.
Right.
I have one more question about not anything specific, but just about how your career functions. So I'm sure you've dealt with a lot of alpha personalities as well, who were either wanting you to be their life coach or were just inquiring, or actually you are their life coach, or in business. So how do you react when someone disagrees with what you're trying to coach them with? And I'm sure you don't get like externally offended by it, but internally, how do you kind of deal with that?
So disagreement comes in all kinds of shapes and forms. Sometimes, the main purpose behind somebody disagreeing is that they're wanting to actually get to the solution, to the point where they realize that they can trust that whatever this is could help them. Okay.
Right.
So sometimes it's not a matter of opinion differences, because in my life coaching, I actually don't share my opinion. This is not a subjective dialogue between myself and somebody else that, oh, I think if you do this and that, then it would be right for you. That actually would not be the best, someone you want to trust that brings in their own personal opinion. However, there have been cases where, because of our experiences or maybe something that they had, they weren't receptive to a concept. They weren't receptive to an idea, which is okay, and that is the opportunity where we can then grow, right? If you only go after the things you agree with, then you can't grow, right? Because you're only looking for other information that is just right with that right alignment of the mental capacity that you currently have. So you can't really grow. I mean, you can't go to someone and say, oh, I don't think, if just because they know 2 + 2 = 4, and now you say, but 2 + 4 = 6. And they go, oh no, I only know 2 + 2. You gotta help them grow without taking offense. Mm-hmm. And yes, I do have a lot of alpha clients. I have a lot of athletes I work with. There are a lot of CEOs and executives, but I'm not sharing anything that is a personal subjective opinion that they can disagree with. If it's a factual, science-based thing, it just needs a little time for them to grow.
I understand.
It's like when you surround yourself with people and friends who are always telling you everything you're doing is good and great, and they don't ever point out your flaws or what's wrong or how you can improve or try to help you out. They're always just feeding you, oh my God, that's great, this is great, you look great, blah, 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 yada, yada. You can never grow from that. Yeah, a yes person. You can never grow from that. That was just my little comment.
Yeah, absolutely.
What's the longest you had to work with somebody until, the wheel started to spin and started to click with them? What's the longest you had to?
What's interesting? The wheel starts to turn on the first day, the first session. Okay. Wow. This isn't something that requires endless amount of time. Mm-hmm. It's kind of just think of it this way. Imagine you're driving your car and the windshield is just dirty. It's clogged up. And you go to a car wash and they clean it for you. And you go, oh, this driving experience is so much more pleasant. That's what working with an equipped, life coach is all about. I am basically the detail shop, the car wash for all these vehicles that come through. So when you clean out the windshield, the perspective, the frame of mind, people start to see more clearly. Naturally, they'll have more experiences. Now, because life is always in progress and change is inevitable, I have clients that have stuck with me for the last 10 years. And, there's always stuff to talk about. There's always stuff to work through. And it is also my responsibility, my duty to keep growing myself, to keep challenging myself, reading, researching, applying, practicing, all of those things. Because I don't want to become archaic and obsolete and set in my own ways. You know what I mean? You have to keep growing to be able to help people and relate to their circumstances.
Seems like then the foundation, the early steps is to find that clarity about yourself. And from there you can grow, however, at whatever pace you need to grow, as long as you have that clarity, it makes everything a little bit easier for yourself. Right.
The mental clarity and also changing your focus from what's wrong with my life, I don't have this, I don't have that, to, well, let me see what's right for me and what's right with me. Let me just pick 1 or 2 of those things and start to capitalize on those things, to grow and to reap the benefits. And it just, again, it's the catalyst that keeps the engine going.
All right, for sake of time, I'm going to go into just one question from our viewers that they sent us on Instagram that I feel like would help people. They asked, what do you see as being the barrier to entry for seeing a life coach? They're curious to know if you think it's people have fear talking about themselves or being comfortable with themselves, or if it's something else.
Well, it's interesting. It's different for every person, but from over the years, I've seen the common denominator being the level of commitment. If they are feeling a lot of resistance is around them, be it by family, through family members or their partner or whoever, then they naturally will start to feel a little resistant to step into that, because there's a lot of that coming in, meaning that if everybody else is asking, well, you don't need a life coach, you'll just figure it out, just, just sleep it off, or just, like,
That's not like my dad.
Right. Like, that's all the new age stuff. You don't need this. You don't need that. If there's a lot of like resistance that is pushing on them, then it would be, difficult for them to want, especially when a person is in a situation, they're in a pivotal time of their life, they're full of doubts, they're full of uncertainties. They're going to feel torn, right? Torn apart between, well, maybe I should sleep it off. Maybe I don't need help. Maybe I could just toughen this out. But that isn't always going to be the case, because if it worked, it would have worked by then, right? Yep. And then the other thing is them not knowing the cost, the commitment when it comes to the financial side of it, right? Because some life coaches do not take insurance. I don't work with insurance. It's something that it's an out-of-pocket cost, and that has played a part, to be frank and completely transparent. That has been the factor for people as well. And I always say to them, like, look, investing 1/3 of the money you would spend on a Gucci handbag on hiring a life coach could give you a lifetime of ROI. And that Gucci bag is going to go out of style and you're going to get sick of it. But your investment in yourself will pay off.
Yep.
In the long run, you can get 5 Gucci bags. So just got to be patient.
Exactly. Once you feel better and you're
and then you
good.
can throw in an Aston Martin in there too, and just.
Oh wow! Okay, we're going all out.
Why not?
So we could probably go 3 hours on this. It's mental health and life itself just is an endless conversation.
We would like it to be. We
would like it to be an endless conversation. So now we get to the hard-hitting stuff, Haleh. We get to the very tough,
nitty-gritty.
This is the nitty-gritty right here. Okay. We're going to go into rapid fire. Okay.
Some rapid fire questions.
Just quick, rapid fire. No explanation needed.
I'll start it off. Okay. Are you ready?
Well, do I get to say pass?
No.
No.
No?
It's not stuff that you.
It's not past stuff.
It's not. You'll see. But if you don't want to answer, don't answer. But I think everything.
You'll like it.
Gonna be okay.
Okay. So first question: if you could have lunch with anyone dead or alive, who would it be?
Lecture, you said?
Lunch with anybody dead or alive.
Nahar.
Oh, lunch with Plato.
Plato. Okay. What's your favorite book?
The 40 Rules of Love by Elif Shafak.
Army, write that one down.
Writing it down. Definitely going to read that. Already the title got me going.
Your favorite city that you've lived in?
That I lived in, San Diego. That I want to live in, Athens, Greece.
Okay.
Favorite cuisine? This is a rapid.
Mediterranean, sorry. Mediterranean.
What's the safe answer?
I'm a vegan, so there's so many different.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
What's one thing on your bucket list, if you have a bucket list?
I have so many. To have a villa in the island of Milos.
Where is that?
Very specific.
Greece.
Oh, Greece. Okay. Who is your role model or inspiration?
My mother.
Okay.
Atlanta or LA for worst traffic?
An easy one.
Oh, LA.
I don't know. I went to Atlanta once and it was terrible. So.
Well, Miami's awful as well. So.
Yeah, it is.
Sure.
I had you sat in the 405 traffic at 5 p.m.
You guys, LA is the worst. I'm going to vouch for her.
I'm not taking away from LA, but Atlanta maybe is very low on the list. Favorite Iranian singer?
Oh, you guys, I've been listening to some new Iranian, or they're new to me because I didn't know. I would say Ehsan Daryo Del.
Oh, gonna write that one down too.
Write that down.
I'm gonna write all this down.
Ehsan Daryo Del.
Ehsan Daryo.
And he has a song called Mahi.
I'm intrigued. What is the first thing you do in the morning?
Stretch.
Picnic at the beach or dinner and movies?
Picnic at the beach.
See, so I like her.
What's your favorite Iranian song?
Kavira Del.
If you had access to a time machine, where would you go and what time period?
1248, 13th century. And I would go hang out with Rumi.
Hey.
Okay. Went in depth on that one.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to go with more like when the Peloponnesian War was.
No, I want to go way, way back.
Way back.
Oh, really? She wants to really use a time machine.
I'm going to hang out with Shams and Rumi
I got one more. What's your favorite Iranian dish?
for masabzi, but the vegan version.
Naturally, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bonus question. Favorite type of tadig?
Oh, the potato kind.
Okay.
Best one,
All
yeah.
right.
Women of culture.
All right. So before we go, Haleh, would you like to give us our news challenge of the week for our listeners to do and for us to also do?
Yes. Okay. So everyone has heard of being grateful and having something that you can put your mind towards that gives you that sense of gratitude. Okay. This year has shaken all of us to our core for so many reasons, so many different levels. And seen this over and over again where it's so easy to get off track and really just, again, focus on the things that we still have to do and the interruptions and the disruptions and all of that. So how do we remain grateful in the midst of all kinds of challenges that collectively involve everybody else? So the challenge is, I want you to start saying, anytime you have to say, or you say, I have to do something, like I have to get on the Zoom call, I have to go to my job, I have to pay the bills, I have to, get my car fixed or whatever, change that and replace have to with get to.
Okay.
Okay. I get to get on the Zoom call. I get to drive my car to get it fixed. I get to call my mother. I get to do whatever it is that feels like a chore, that feels like a duty.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And the reason for that is that it reminds us that all of these things are still blessings at the end
Absolutely.
of the day.
They
Grateful
mean, yeah.
for them.
Right.
They mean something.
The fact that you're able to wake up in the morning in a bed and get into a vehicle that's relatively new and go to a job that pays you handsomely, we get to go do these things.
We get to
Gosh,
do these things.
Don't gloat so much.
Seriously, Arash. He's like, I'm going to say I get to drive because you just got a Tesla. So
Oh,
he's
come
gonna be like,
on. We're not going to do
I
that.
get to drive my Tesla and I get to go to work in my new
Yes.
Tesla.
Yes. And then at the end of the day, after you've said all of those things, at the end of the night, when you go to sleep, now it's easier for you to be grateful, to be in that vibration of gratitude, which is super important for a good life.
I think as a society, we take a lot of things for granted.
Yes.
So we need to not scale it back, but at least take a step back and just appreciate everything that's in front of us. Haleh or Haleh,
Hello.
thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule for joining us in our foolishness. We really appreciate you. I mean, I hope we get to have you on again because I think there was another page of questions we had that we couldn't even get.
Yeah. It's all very interesting.
I would love to. We can definitely chat again.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And
Thanks,
rest assured, this was for educational purposes. We weren't trying to swindle an hour from you or anything.
For our own personal.
What isn't a trial run?
No, it was great. I had fun with you guys. You're doing amazing stuff. Keep doing it. It's so important, so needed, more than you can imagine. So I hope you continue with what you're doing.
Thank you so much.
And all my best to you.
Thank you very
Appreciate
much.
it. Thank you for having.
Take
All
care.
right, take care.